In our final speech before the break, I think we're going to talk a little bit about, a lot of us thought about the internet when we first heard about it, and we thought, wow, this is a great way for open communication. And I think a lot of the speeches and talks we've heard this morning have been about locking things down. So our next speaker, I think, will explain to us how things can be opened up. It's the CEO of Ushahidi, Nathaniel Manning.
Intertrust and Line for having me. Actually, about half my family's in Southeast Asia, so I've been an active Line user since about 2014-13. So I love it. Thanks for that. I'm going to talk to you a little about Ushahidi. Our mission, our work, is to build technology that helps people raise their voice and those who serve them to listen and respond better. What we see around the world is that a lot of people do not have a voice, and that these organizations, in the same way like Lion was talking about bridging the gap, there's just the communication lines often are broken down for different reasons. Either we can't access these people because they're in critical situations and crisis, or disadvantaged, or if there's been something's happened and they're not able to get to those who are really trying to help them. We have an interesting story. It's a unique one. We are part Silicon Valley and actually part African. The organization was founded about 10 years ago, and we're now a team of 30 technologists, designers, and developers. We're based. We have about a third of us are based in Nairobi, Kenya. A third of us are here, spread across North America. A third of us are spread all over the world, from places like Europe, and Japan, New Zealand. So we work in a really remote way, and our software, I'll get into it, has been deployed about 125,000 times. And fundamentally what we're doing is providing software to the government, humanitarian, and sort of development sectors, and I'll talk a little bit about that. I always think that the founding story is one of the best examples, and I was very pleasantly surprised to learn a bit about the founding story of Line as well, because it's actually very similar. So a crisis hit 10 years ago in Kenya. There was an election, and it was very close, and the country more or less broke into a civil war. And there were 4 technologists, bloggers, people that wrote about technology in Africa, and they knew each other online, and they said, I want to understand what's happening on the ground. A lot of them were studying in the United States at the time. They had family there, and they're trying to say, hey, what's going on? And so they said, they were trolling through Twitter, they were SMSing everyone they knew. It was the very early days of Twitter. They were reading all these RSS feeds and blogs, and they're saying, the journalists, the stories that are being published are only a few people's points of view. But I want to try to figure out from everyone's points of view, where's that? Is there a ride on this street? Should my mom go to my aunt's house? Is it safer there? And so they built a tool that fundamentally did that, and crowdsourced information from many different places. And it looked like this, the very first one. And they never really thought anyone was going to have to say the word Ushahidi again outside of that original instance. It means witness or testimony, and what's been lovely is, like I said, it's actually grown to be used all over the world. And continues to be used for that. So a little bit about the product. What that looks like. What does that look like? So when we crowdsource information, we gather, people can report in via many different ways. It then gets managed. We think about this kind of the data life cycle. Organized so your team of people can triage those reports. And then you can see trends over time, and you get to respond directly to them in the cases of a crisis, and visualize it on a map. Fundamentally trying to understand what's happening when and where. And some of the key things that we've learned is when you're crowdsourcing information, go to where the people are. So we didn't build an app that you're required to go download. Basically, if you're a citizen, you can report in via SMS, via Twitter, via Facebook Messenger. If you're the field staff of the Red Cross that's out there doing the in-person reporting, you can report in just via the mobile app. Then that's great. It works online. It works offline. You can grab embeddable web forms and spread them across front pages of news articles like they did in the Irma hurricane recently. It was on the local NPR station, had that embeddable form on them. You can grab webhooks and APIs from other data sources. You can upload CSV files with existing data points like polling stations in an election. And then soon, you can also be gathering IoT sensors as well. So not only gathering information from people, but things. And then it hits this area, this trust bridge, is actually what we call it, which I think is appropriate to today's work. But fundamentally, why are people reporting in? Well, they need to trust the people they're reporting to. And that's because it's the Red Cross that's asking you to submit. It could be that, why do you call 911? Because to an extent, you trust that you call them, you trust the police, you trust the fire response teams, that they're going to come and take care of you. They might be reporting in the case of a human rights work or a journalist, and you want to raise this story, right? And so this also becomes very important, as I mentioned, the kind of three main areas that we end up working in is human rights, crisis response, and election monitoring. And so in the human rights work, you got to really trust the people that you're reporting to, that they're going to keep that data safe. And I'll get into some examples around that. And then, as I mentioned, then the outputs are fundamentally the ability to respond and advocate and visualize and understand that data. So what's important is privacy is essential for trust. And trust is essential for the powerless to stand up to the powerful. And as I was talking about, some of those human rights examples, our deployments have been running in Syria for the last 7 years. And people are reporting in on what's happening on the ground. There's over about 10,000 reports now of human rights abuses. Certainly it's not inclusive of every single abuse that's happened, but these are firsthand verified witness reports. And there's also a trust of the systems that you're using for that. So they're very clear to never send these in via text message, because you're reporting on the regime uses a local network. So they're using systems that are safer, that are using all the data is hosted in Europe or the United States in this case, and they're building the trust that encourages people to continue to report and be able to speak up. As I mentioned, so about over the last 10 years, this is a kind of software as a service type model, right? So each deployment is its own instance or deployment is what we call it, and the users are often anyone from the UN Department of Field Services, the peacekeeping missions. They use our software in 10 of the countries where they're activated, with reporting in every day to use, just in the past few months by local communities in Puerto Rico, in response to that hurricane, in Mexico, in the post-earthquake there, in Miami, Houston. And so now there's been 125,000 deployments of the software in the last 10 years across 160 countries in over 40 different localized languages. So a couple of those examples, I put up here the Nepal quake map example, but I wish I'd known. I'm really excited to learn. I didn't know the founding story of Line, which was really neat. Which is actually the largest deployment of Ushahidi to date is in response to their Fukushima earthquake. There was over 100,000 reports that reported it. That was Sinside.info, if anyone maybe remembers that, because actually it was deployed within 4 hours of the earthquake by the OpenStreetMap community in Japan. And within 48 hours, the government was actually pointing people to that deployment. That was where they said, this is where you need to go to report. And then they were triaging all those reports and sending them along to the government. And actually, the same thing happened in Nepal, which is that there was a local, again, actually an OpenStreetMap kind of community group that deployed Ushahidi, bought quakemap.org, and started telling people about it and telling them how to report to it. And sure enough, because they knew there was going to be an earthquake in Kathmandu, sort of like how we know there's going to be an earthquake here in the Bay Area at some point. And when there was, people started to report it, people knew. And then, what happened was the government was like, shoot, we don't have 911, we don't have 911 in Nepal. Our lines are overdrawn. We need to figure out what's happening on the ground. And wow, this community is the one that's getting all of those reports. And so they directed everyone to that. And then they began to triage, understand, in those incidents in situational awareness and then send them on to the Nepalese army, who were deployed about 1,000 helicopters in that first day or two, ideally saving many people's lives that wouldn't have otherwise been able to get those voices heard. An advocacy and human rights example, a deployment that we started, it's a little controversial, but sad. Actually started it just about a year ago, by a few days, a year and 5 days ago, on November 8th, or 9th rather, here in the United States, when a lot of hate speech and hate crimes started to happen. Lots of graffiti and things around the 2016 elections. And so we worked with a handful of journalists that allowed people to report those incidents of hate speech or hate crimes that are being committed, and gathered about 400 first-hand reports in those first 2 weeks. And then handed it off to folks like ProPublica and the New York Times, who continue to run that tip service for trying to raise the stories of hate speech in America. And then the last example, more enlightened one, is an election monitoring example that is from the 2012 election in the United States, and where actually the Obama campaign used our software. And what was interesting here was it was used for day of election monitoring. One of the slides I showed earlier was around the Kenyan elections, which we just monitored twice this year. And so our tool's been used for national election monitoring around the world about 50 different times. And people were reporting in, if you think about an election or a crisis, I mean, this is an interesting case. What you're getting tons of data in a very short amount of time that you need to verify and triage quickly. And it's coming from all different places. And so what they're doing on this election is you have a very short amount of time. And so what they're reporting on is just seeing, like, are there any, if you think about this as a logistically crazy system, amount of work that needs to happen. So there's all these different bulk polling stations in all these different communities around the country. And you have monitors there, and they're basically looking and saying, did they run out of ballots before the day was end? Is the line too long? Is there just a mistake in registration? Or is there something as bad as sort of voter suppression going on, people threatening folks or intimidating? And then folks are basically reporting on that. And what happens in the United States is if you can bring enough evidence they can basically extend the voting time period. That's what the law allows for you to do. And so they're able actually to do that. You have to rush this through quickly, if you can imagine. You need enough data. So they were gathering the data from all of their volunteers and the people on the ground, getting it quickly enough for the very first time that they're able to bring 5 cases in 5 different states and won all 5 of them by just showing them the map and printing out the CSV file. And all the judges say, yeah, sure enough, look, it looks like they ran out of ballots there, and there was some issues over there. And they extended the voting time period by a number of hours in each of those cases, and hundreds of thousands of people's votes were able to be counted that wouldn't have otherwise, who deserved to have those votes counted. So that I think is a powerful impact that we care about, that it's communication technology allowing for complex systems to be managed more efficiently. And so the other thing I want to talk about is a product. We're actually a 2-product company now as of about a week ago, which I'm very excited about. It's something that we've been doing for a while. We're in a soft launch at the moment. And it also came out of a crisis situation. And I asked them, are you responsible for people? And this is really a tool, whereas Ushahidi is a pull tool, people are crowdsourcing in. This is actually more of a push messaging service. So this crisis came out of the Westgate attacks in Nairobi. There's a terrorist attack in Nairobi. This is a scary thing. Fortunately, these are sort of things that are happening more and more. Not only just terrorist attacks, but also just crisis situations. And what we noticed is that everyone in our offices did something immediately, which I'm guessing actually probably the line folks did. So everyone pulled out their phone and they started texting their friends. They called their grandparents. They texted their parents, maybe, and friends. They then were, so they were probably WhatsApping their colleagues. They're a little before that, but these days I've been slacking my work colleagues. I probably emailed them at the time. And basically everyone just had to head their phone for an hour. And then they pulled it up and started doing something. And it was just like, is anyone I know stuck in that mall right now? Because if you don't know much about the situation, basically the group terrorists held the largest mall in the city hostage. And there were a lot of people in there on a Saturday afternoon. And it was scary. And that's what people want to know, is they want to know in there. What does that explain? Well, as a team, we looked at that, and we work on crisis response tools, and we said that our tool is completely useless in this case. This is not what we built it for. Our tool is used for earthquake response and large election monitoring systems, nationwide political crisis. This is hyper-localized, but this is something that, there's so clearly something that needs fixing here, which is that our team, if you're responsible for people, if you're duty of care, whether you're a family member or an HR worker, or someone running HR for an organization, whether you're a principal at a school, your team communication is totally fragmented and chaotic. People use different channels. People have the right to use different channels. They have the freedom to do that, and people like to be reached in different ways. But it makes it really hard to figure out who's okay and who's not. And so roll call fundamentally just tries to solve that very simple problem. What it does is it can push out a question, you can set up a series of answers to it, and it can send it out via a handful of different ways. I love product, it's my favorite thing, so I can give a quick little demo of what that looks like. I can write a question, are you okay? I can answer answers, yes or no. I can add multiple answers, I can do things like that. I can send it out, I can choose whether it goes to their preferred method, whether I want to send it, blast them in every possible way, SMS, email, Slack. Maybe something like Line soon, because that would be really cool. We want to just reach people where they already are. As I mentioned earlier, that's our goal. Reach people where they are. Or, of course, if they actually have the app downloaded, they can reach them directly there. You pick the people you want to send it to. Maybe I want to reach out to just all my engineers. Maybe I want to reach out to the roll call team. Maybe I want to reach out to the entire company. And then quickly it tells me what's up. So, are you okay? Who wants to go to karaoke tonight? One person does, one does not before I'm answering me yet. And I can quickly triage with a couple clicks of a button instead of having to spend that first hour or two with my nose to my phone. And I can hopefully help get to people in important cases. And this could be in the case of a crisis, but it also be if you're an organization who just has staff everywhere and you duty of care over them, and you want to make sure that there's checking in every day or two. You can automate this sort of stuff. So, as what we've learned, chaos, the thing that happens after a giant earthquake or during an election or a situation of terrorist attack is fundamentally a breakdown of communication. And order can begin to take place once we're able to fix those communications and start to act. And to be able to do that, we need trusted platforms for those who are responsible for others. That's the key. People need to trust those systems that are in use. So these are two of the things that we've done as an organization. We've done tons of stuff over the last 10 years. We tend to build a lot of different open source tools. We run large global programs. We've built a handful of products that we've also rolled out and done some interesting stuff with. So I'd encourage you all. I'm happy to answer any questions. Talk to anyone today. I want to thank again the host for bringing.